Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome to The Doctors Are In. We are just phenomenally pleased, happy, ecstatic to be here with you today. Doctors Are In is our virtual health clinic that is free and open to everyone, anywhere you are. During this session, we allow you to, or we invite you rather, to ask any questions, share any concerns that you may have pertaining to either your health or the health of a friend or a loved one, so that we can explore different opportunities for pursuing health and wellness. Now, without any further ado, we have with us Dr. Priya, who's in the background, it seems. Dr. Silla, who's usually with us, is unfortunately been called away for family emergency. And hopefully Dr. Ealy will be joining us shortly. He's very, very busy doing lots of research and working primarily right now with patients who are experiencing adverse vaccine reactions and also long haul COVID. So he is extremely busy. So we'll see if he's going to be able to join us today. In any case, we're going to go ahead and get started. I will first and foremost remind you that everything that we are sharing here is for educational purposes. We encourage you to make sure that before you pursue any kinds of suggestions that we may share, that you pursue talking with your medical provider, your qualified health providers, so that you can decide with their assistance what is best for you. Again, remember, everything that we are talking about here is for educational purposes. That being said, I'm going to open it up for anyone who is present with us right now to ask any questions or share any concerns, any thoughts. Yay, go ahead, Karen.
Sorry. My mom was diagnosed with melanoma, and I'm not sure that that's the right diagnosis. And the doctors, this whole thing has been such a joke. It's been going on for like maybe a month. And so she had a growth on her face and one on her arm, or the left side. And she couldn't get in to see a dermatologist, so she was putting castor oil on them, and the one on her face fell off, and I think the one on her arm was going to fall off, but then the appointment came along, so she went to the appointment and they sliced it off, and then did like a biopsy or something. Just, she said it didn't look like a melanoma, but she was going to send it away, and then they came back and said it was deep and she needed to have it out right away and check the lymph node. They sent it to an oncologist, but they messed that up so much. She got an appointment like weeks later. And then that person, we decided she's not willing to do any chemo or radiation or immunotherapy. So there's no point in taking the lymph nodes out. She probably needs the lymph nodes anyway. But she does want to get the melanoma out of her arm, if it really is that. So then the lady, the oncologist, listened to her heart to see if she could even be put to sleep, because she's 86. And then she heard a clicking. And we've been trying to get an appointment with a cardiologist for weeks. And just to know, she wouldn't do anything like surgery or anything, but so what I'm wondering is, we've been talking to people at the Lodi Oasis of Healing in Arizona, and he's recommending they can't get her in until like end of December, but we're doing the juicing and the wheatgrass juice and the raw food. But he also said to get some IV oxygen therapy, and the thermo, can't remember what it's called, hypothermic bed. He didn't think she could handle that because of her age. So I'm just like, what would be the problem with her age? Is it her heart? What are we looking for to know if she can do that? And also, if she can do this oxygen sauna kind of thing. Does that have something to do with her heart?
Well, from my understanding, the oxygen would have to do with the red blood cells and improving the circulation. So I'm not really sure what their concern is as it pertains to the heart. Are they afraid that her blood will become over oxygenated? I mean, what is it
No,
that
I
their
think
concern is?
the IV oxygen therapy would be good, but I'm wondering about like the one like the sauna and the hyperthermic bed thing. If that, like, what's the concern there with her age? She's really healthy. She doesn't take any medications or anything. She goes to all these exercise classes and everything. So I'm like, why would her age make that a concern? Like, I don't know what.
Well, I know when we're talking about things like hypothermia or hyperthermia, as we get older, it's like we kind of revert to the way we were when we were babies, where you probably remember that babies don't have as strong an ability to regulate their temperature, so that's why whenever you have a baby, you're cautioned, especially when they're younger, to bundle them and things of that nature, because they don't have the ability to maintain their body temperature the way older people do, meaning adults. And then as we get older, we kind of shift or revert back to that kind of situation where we don't necessarily maintain our temperature as effectively. Our metabolism shifts in terms of the ability for us to maintain our temperature. So a lot of times you'll notice that as people get older, they become more sensitive to temperature extremes because they're not able to adapt internally the way they were when they were younger. So that may be part of their concern, that if she does hyperthermia, she may get into a situation where she maintains that high temperature and is not able to cool herself back down again. And the same with the hypothermia, they may be concerned that if we cool her off, that she's not going to be able to reset effectively. So that may be a concern. Dr. Priya, are you there? I'm not sure if she's there. Okay. But what are your thoughts about what you're saying?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I was thinking like we could just try it once and see if but I don't want to do something really bad.
I mean, one thing. Well, the thing is that I think one of the things that you're implying is that your mom is not your typical 86-year-old, meaning that she is rather robust and healthy. And so one session would give you an opportunity to observe, and see how she responds. She may be one of those people that's like, wow, this is exactly what I need. And that's one of the things that we have to really acknowledge when we work with our clients, which is that everyone is individual. Every 86-year-old is not the same. And that's the thing that we have to keep in mind again, when doctors prescribe certain things. They prescribe it based on the belief that most people are not going to do the work, are not capable of transforming their health. And that's true. Most people are not willing to make the lifestyle changes, and they don't have the resilience that is needed to actually create a significant transformation in their lives. But at the same time, most is not all. There's some people, as you're implying, Karen, like your mom, shoot, she's kick butt. She can do all kinds of stuff. She's not the one who's been eating ding dongs and ho-hos for the past 86 years of her life, So she is probably one of those people that has maintained the integrity of her body's ability to self-regulate its temperature. And so she could maybe perhaps benefit from things like the hypothermia or the hyperthermia. So my suggestion is, if she chooses to do that, maybe perhaps you can make sure that you are there with her and monitor her, and especially if you're doing the hyperthermia, making sure that she is properly hydrated. Whenever I do saunas with people, I always give them an electrolyte drink to take with them into the sauna. And I make sure that they're hydrated even before they go into the sauna. So I juice them up before they go into the sauna. And then while they're in the sauna, they're sipping some coconut water or something like that. And then after they come out of the sauna, again, I'm making sure that they're hydrated, so that the electrolyte balance is there. And then, even after she comes out of the sauna, to perhaps keep her, with a robe on and something like that, so that her body can slowly acclimate back to the ambient temperature.
Okay. So I just didn't want to like stop her heart or anything if I heated her up too much.
And they tell us the same thing about children. And the reality is that when my children were younger, anytime they had any kind of flu or bug or anything creeping up on them, the first thing I did was pop them in the sauna. And technically that's a no-no to put children into a sauna. But I knew that my kids were not your typical kid eating, ding dongs and ho-hos and McDonald's and all that kind of junk. And I made sure that I fortified them, before they went in, during, and after. So keep in mind these different things. And what I always tell people is to go with your heart. If there's something in you that says, you know what, I think it's worth trying. Because the reality is what they're proposing is deadly.
Yeah,
They're proposing chemo and stuff like that we know kills your cells, your healthy cells. So one sauna session, and you may start with a short sauna session, like maybe just doing 10 minutes, and seeing how she does, seeing how she feels afterwards. And then if she feels good afterwards, maybe 2 or 3 days after, try a 15-minute sauna, and again, build up. Because everyone, no matter what age, we all have different tolerance levels.
Okay, good point. Yeah, thanks. We'll try it.
Yeah. Okay. All righty. Any other questions for those of you who are here in person?
I have a question.
Sure.
I apologize for not showing my face, but I'm at work. And so I just thought that I would.
No apology needed. No apology needed. Go for it.
I'm currently, my cholesterol is up just a little, and I'm currently putting whole psyllium husk into my diet. Is that a good way of addressing the cholesterol? And would it hurt if I consumed it throughout, like maybe 3 times a day in some water, just to kind of make things better? Or is there something else that I could do other than the other foods that I could eat to help with that?
Mm-hmm. Well, actually, we were just talking about this with Dr. H, because I'm now part of his group, because I love doing continuing ed. I'm always going to school. I'm always looking at learning more. And a couple years back, I studied with Dr. Rita Marie Lascalzo, and now I'm studying with Dr. H. And interesting that you brought that up, because what we were talking about was the fact that a lot of people, number one, are freaking out about cholesterol. There has been an entire drug industry that has been created around the myth of cholesterol, where people think, oh my God, my cholesterol is over 200, I'm going to drop dead tomorrow. So we have to, number one, keep in mind that that particular story was put out there so that they could sell a drug, otherwise known as statins. So that's one thing to keep in mind. Now, the second thing to keep in mind is, yes, we do want to look at what our cholesterol is doing and lower our cholesterol. And that's when we start to look at the components of cholesterol, because we can't just think about total cholesterol. We have to look at the components of the cholesterol. So within the total cholesterol, you have your LDLs, you have your HDLs, and you have your triglycerides. Those are the three big groups that compose the total cholesterol. So when you do a deep dive and you look at things like your triglycerides being elevated are usually associated with imbalances in how you're metabolizing your blood glucose. So the best way to lower your triglycerides is actually to bring balance to how you're metabolizing your blood glucose. Now, if you're looking instead at your LDL being elevated, then one of the best ways to get your LDLs to get lowered is fiber. So what you're doing with the psyllium husk powder is phenomenal. And we can increase the amount of fiber throughout the day. The only thing to keep in mind is that if you're not drinking a lot of water, and if you are not getting enough, say, vitamin C and magnesium, and if the tone in your bowel is not appropriate, then you may experience backing up, meaning constipation, because the body's like, whoa, I'm not used to all of this fiber. So one of the things that you may want to consider is slowly increasing the amount of fiber that you're taking. So, start off with maybe one drink. And when you have gotten to the point where your bowels are regular, and by regular, I mean having the same number of bowel movements as you are having meals. So if you're eating 2 times a day, then you need to be having at least 2 to 3 bowel movements a day. If you're eating 3 times a day, then you need to be having at least 3 to 4 bowel movements a day, and good sized bowel movements to where you go, whoo, yeah, I feel empty. I feel good. Yeah, let's get some more stuff to go in. No, you don't want to overstuff yourself. But anyway, so once you have gotten your bowels to get regular, then you can increase the amount of the psyllium husk or the fiber. Other things that help are things like soluble fiber, like pectin. So you can get, say, apple fiber, apple pectin, and that also can help to reduce the cholesterol, the LDLs in this case. And the other thing that helps us to reduce our LDLs are our essential fatty acids, our quote unquote good fats, like, your avocados and your cold water fish and things of that nature. Some green algae also have essential fatty acids that are phenomenal at improving your quote unquote good fats. Now, if you have an elevation of your HDL, and yes, it is possible to have too much HDL. So if you have an elevation in your HDL, then what you're looking at more so is that this is an indication of possible inflammatory conditions in the body. So when there's a lot of inflammation in the body, then that can sometimes start to elevate the HDLs to a point where it's not a good thing. Too much of anything is not a good thing, So yeah, hope that helps.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, but that's great that you're doing. Oh, the reason why I started to piggyback off of Dr. H is because he was sharing his own personal story of how he lowered his cholesterol by 39 points by just eating more fiber with his shakes with the psyllium husk. So that was what triggered me to talk about that.
So what is you said we can't just have just look at it just as cholesterol, but is it the LDL? Is there a good number, HDL, a decent number that would make it a good number? Because I was told that my cholesterol is too high. It needs to be 70 or below.
Whoa, wait. What was your total cholesterol? Let's start with that.
Now, I don't have the paperwork with me because, like I said, I'm at work, and I apologize for bringing the question up without that. But I think it was my LDLs that they were looking at, and it was 115. And he said they'd like for it to be 70 or lower.
Yeah. So that makes sense. And the only thing that I'm sharing with you is that in your case, it is the LDLs that are making the total cholesterol be too high.
Okay.
So in that case, the most appropriate way of dealing with lowering the LDLs are twofold, well, threefold. Also exercise, right? Exercise is something that is very critical, helping to lower the LDLs by increasing your muscle mass and tone and things of that nature. The second thing is fiber. Fiber is king when it comes to lowering your cholesterol in this specific situation with regards to the LDLs. And then the third thing to consider is your essential fatty acids, meaning your omega fatty acids, right? To start eating your, say, your salmon, your cold water fish, your green algae, avocados, things of that nature that have your good fats that will help to lower the quote unquote LDLs, what they refer to as bad fats, but I don't deal with good fats, bad fats. They all have their purpose, but in any case. So by doing those three things, you'll help to lower your LDLs. But fiber is king, because most people do not consume enough fiber, especially in the United States, where we cook and we process everything and we take the fiber out of everything. And so for that reason, we usually have sluggish bowels that accumulate all kind of plaque and cholesterol, and also in the bloodstream. So yeah.
You like flax seeds and walnuts for that?
Yeah, those omega fatty acid stuff. Yep. So your flax seeds, your walnuts,
To get your
all the
omega.
things that have your good omega-3s. You had a question? Uh-oh. We didn't hear what you just said. Uh-oh.
I didn't get her name.
Oh, Karen.
Karen. Thank you, Karen, for adding that. I love walnuts. I try to include more flax in everything. Thank you.
Yeah, and chia. So other really good stuff. Yep. Any other questions for those of us who are here in person before we go to the questions that were sent in? Okay, so let's see. We've got lots of questions that were sent in. One that we have, which I think is very appropriate for our time right now, is a question about the triple demic that we keep on hearing about with regards to COVID, RSV, and the flu, and especially with children. So, how many of you guys have been hearing about the triple demic that's coming our way? Like, oh my God, something else to be scared of. Whoa. First we had the pandemic, then we had the double demic or whatever, and now we're in the triple demic. So they're really gonna freak us out now. So how many of you guys have heard about the triple demic that's coming to a neighborhood near you? Anybody, or is it just the person who sent in this question?
Well, I've heard about some stuff coming. I hadn't heard it called that, but I've heard that it's going to be worse than anything we've dealt with before. So, that's one of the reasons why, because I knew that might pop up from somewhere.
Yeah, so they're encouraging us to do our double whammy jams. So they're encouraging us to do our flu shots and our COVID shots, and they are implying that they're going to concoct an RSV shot very shortly. I'm pretty sure we're going to see that roll out in the next couple of months. So be looking at a fair near you for that one. You've heard of that one, Lori?
Yes, because they're just on a mad. I was at the hospital helping a friend who had a severe operation, and then they were offering her, well, they said, well, you need to get your flu vaccine, and you need to get your booster, and you need to get your respiratory, and they're also promoting shingles. They're offering a shingles vaccine because people are having shingles as an outbreak after being vaccinated for COVID. So anyway, it was just an onslaught, and she said no thank you to all. She's trying to recover. So there you go. That's from the front lines.
Wow. Yeah, it's always something coming down the turnpike. Well, as you guys probably know by now, my approach to everything is an ounce of prevention. And I truly believe that we are divinely designed to handle the little critters that Mother Nature brings our way. If you were with me from the very beginning of 2020, one of the things that I warned about was the fact that we are actually weakening people's immune systems. We're weakening people's immune systems with the crud that we're eating. And during the pandemic, we ate even more crud because we were told to stay at home and order Mickey D's and have it Uber Eats delivered. And they literally had the commercial with the guy laying down on his sofa. And it was like, yes, you're doing a great thing by ordering your Uber Eats and getting your Mickey D's and your Burger King sent into you.
Oh my gosh.
So
That's
between
horrific.
that and of course, the fact that we were suffocated for many years, AKA that.
Yeah.
That leads to a weakening of the immune system. Because you're collecting all of that junk right there and preventing it from being released. So when we look at RSV, one of the things to keep in mind is that it's a very common virus.
Right.
And especially with children, very common amongst children. And they themselves will acknowledge that very few children really have a difficult time with RSV. It's something like the cold, like, oh, okay, you got the cold, big whoop-de-da. But the reason why I think it's going to become more of an issue this year, not just because they're going to inflate numbers and do all kinds of funky stuff like they usually do, but because we have literally weakened our children. We have weakened their immune system. We've made them afraid of everything. We've pumped them up with cortisol. And when you pump yourself up with cortisol, what you're basically doing is also sabotaging your immune system. And we don't take this into consideration. So it's not just a matter of this little bug that's running around. It's the fact that we have become fodder. We have become big targets for these little bugs because we are so vulnerable at this point in time. We are not eating properly. And because we don't eat properly, we're not getting the nourishment that our body needs to be able to deal with all of these various viruses and just ordinary little bugs that are in our environment. So the littlest thing is going to throw us off. So, and then the other thing that we have to consider is that these various shots have actually primed our immune system to be more susceptible. So the data has been rolling in, and even before COVID, long before COVID, it was generally acknowledged that people who got the flu shot were more susceptible to getting the flu, ironically.
Wow. Amazing.
And people who got the flu shot were more susceptible to getting complications with COVID. So that was commonly accepted before 2020. And it hasn't changed. It's just that now the narrative has changed. And now we want to believe that these are the wonderful shields that are going to protect us from everything. But in reality, as I said, the research has come out that people who have taken these shots are actually in a position where their immune system is more compromised and more susceptible to the little critters that ordinary people aren't as susceptible to. So when we look at the quote unquote triple-demic that we are told is coming to a theater near us, what I encourage us to think about is, how do I fortify my immune system? And remember that fortifying your immune system is not simply about taking 50 million supplements. Yes, vitamin D is good. Yes, vitamin C is good. Yes, zinc is good. Yes, quercetin is good. All of those things are good. And I really, really encourage us to consider the fact that one of the major saboteurs of our immune system is how we deal with what we perceive to be stressful. How we deal with our world. Are we in fear of everything in our world? And I think that many people have developed this kind of threshold of constantly activating the sympathetic part of their nervous system, the sympathetic meaning the part that you're like, there are lions and tigers and bears over the place that I've got to be, wait up. To this day, people are still running around wearing masks. And when I see someone with a mask, what comes through my mind is, poor dear heart, you are so afraid of your world. And it's painful for me to see children with the masks, because we have made them perpetually afraid of everything in their lives. They're afraid of human contact. They're afraid of Mother Nature. You'll see kids outside, there's like nobody else in the yard, and they're wearing a mask. And that fear is constantly activating the sympathetic part of their nervous system. It is constantly pumping out cortisol. And when you are constantly pumping out cortisol, you're constantly compromising the integrity and the resilience of your immune system.
Makes sense.
So that is
I hear
something
ya.
to consider as we go into what is traditionally called cold and flu season. And even that, I believe, is a misnomer. What it is really and truly is that we're heading into the yin, the peak of the yin cycle of life. So what I mean by that, in Chinese culture, we have an understanding of energy being yang or hot and externalized versus yin, which is cool and internalized. So as we go into winter, we get the peak, and the peak is going to be December 21st, which is the winter solstice. That is going to be the peak of the yin energy. It is going to be the lowest point of the yang energy. And so your defense system, your immune system, functions out of the yang aspect of your being. That is the protection part of your being. That is the part that is the warrior part of your being. So at that point, you're at the lowest point in the cycle. You're at your most vulnerable point when it comes to your protection, your yang force. And then from there, it starts to build up. So that is why what we consider to be cold and flu season, which is your fall and your winter, is in actuality just a way of misrepresenting the fact that this is when your protection or your yang forces are going cycling down. And so that is why we may see an increase of quote unquote cold and flu or viral infections or things of that nature. So that's one aspect of it. A second aspect of it is to consider that we are going into, in the United States, the holidays. And what do people do during Thanksgiving and Christmas? Well, we started off with Halloween, right? That's what starts off this whole crescendo. So we start off in the fall with Halloween, and then we go to Thanksgiving, and then we go to Christmas. And what do we do during all three of those holidays? Tell me.
Sugar.
sugar, 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 and more sugar. And
Yeah.
then we wonder why we end up having cold and flu season. Why
Very
we
good
just get
point.
to the point where our body says, oh, I can't handle it. I'm going to be sick for a week, which is basically what happens when we get a virus or something. You know, like, yeah, I'm checking out for a week. I got to try and rebound. Nobody stops to think, well, you know what? I've been assaulting my immune system with all these gobs and gobs of sugar for all of these 3 months, starting in October, November, December. So it makes sense that the body says, I've got to regroup. I've got to have some holiday to clean this stuff out. Because you'll notice that you get a cold, and what's one of the first things you get? Lots of phlegm, snot going everywhere. Not only is it because you're releasing your dead white blood cells and things of that nature, but it also gets the gook out. You may notice that if you eat a lot of carbohydrates, simple carbohydrates, cakes, cookies, all that kind of stuff, the morning after, you get all that gook in your eyes. You get, phlegmy in your throat. You get snot coming out your nose. Or you may get, you may wake up and it's like, I can't breathe kind of thing. You get stuffy nose. That's where it's coming from. All of that sugar. And yet it seems it's the same symptomology as when we have a quote unquote cold, or when we have a quote unquote flu or something of that nature, because we've compromised the integrity of the immune system.
That's great. I guess it's too obvious.
Well, we don't want to see it. We don't want to make those connections, because then we can't blame it on the little boogeyman, otherwise known as the little bugs.
Yeah.
It's easy for us to blame the bugs as opposed to looking in the mirror, like Michael Jackson says, to look at the man or woman in the mirror and say, it starts with me. It starts with my choices. It's hard to say that. And especially in today's culture, where it's never our fault, it's always somebody else's fault or something else's fault. It's never our fault. We're always the victim. Everybody's just beating up on us, So Mother Nature is just, this horrible, horrible thing that's trying to whack us out, and we've got to beat her down and submit her, subdue her, and put her in her place, kind of thing.
Yeah.
No. If it works for you, hey, what can I say? Any other thoughts on the epidemic coming our way?
Well, just as you said, Michelle, Dr. Gamble, everyone needs to pick up their health regimens and strengthen themselves up. One of the things I find is, the other thing is, people thought that they couldn't go outside, they couldn't get sunshine, they couldn't walk, they couldn't get exercise. And, that has been a health regimen for a very long time, is get somebody out, get them some air out their room, get them some sunshine, all those basic things we know to do to improve someone's health. And then, as you say, eating well, cooking at home, a lot of good fruits, vegetables, proteins, and, people have their own diets, but, cutting out the packaged food, and improve your health, because the statistics nationally, particularly, just show that the real problem is poor health. Opening, and then you're just opening up to whatever else might go on. So I just am a real believer in those time-tested basics of what you would do to improve someone's health. Anyway, that's my 2 cents.
Yeah. That is awesome. And I love what you just said in terms of the importance of sunshine.
Yes.
We were told, don't go outside, stay in your house.
Exactly.
Like, really? That's like the worst. I mean, and like I said, even before COVID, we had all of these reports, environmental reports that said that the most unhealthy place for you to be is inside your house. There are more toxins inside your house killing you than what's outside. Because at least outside, hopefully you have a couple trees somewhere still, you know. So, and then we also saw that people who had low levels of vitamin D had more risk for complications with COVID and everything else.
That's
you
right.
know, because your vitamin D helps to deal with the inflammatory cascade. And so coming back to one of the things that you asked Karen with regards to the melanoma, you know, I'm sure that you've probably looked at her vitamin D levels and vitamin A levels, right?
The D is 69. I didn't look at vitamin A.
Yeah, because vitamin A is also very, very critical with skin health. And also looking at, she's not taking any steroids, corticosteroids, is she?
Well, no,
Okay.
but she takes thyroid medication, that's all.
Okay, yeah. So that's good because corticosteroids also break down the integrity of your epithelial cells. So it thins out the skin and makes it more susceptible to things like melanoma and stuff like that. So that's one of the things to consider, as you were saying, Lori, that we're getting proper sunshine, proper fresh air, proper exercise, all of that, getting lots of hugs and sleep. That's the other thing to keep in mind. When you remember, we were talking about the cycles, the yin yang cycle. So as we go into the winter, you'll notice that we have longer nights. And it's like, why would Mother Nature give us longer nights? Maybe because she wants us to sleep. You know, like the bears that go into the caves and they have these long, long sleeps called hibernation. Now, obviously, we human beings are not going to go into a cave and hibernate and go to sleep for months. But this does give us an opportunity to sleep for longer periods of time. Unfortunately, we live in the world of technology where even though the light has gone down, we still have these little cell phones and whatnot. So it's as if nothing has changed because we keep on exposing ourselves to these things in the middle of the night and we're not getting enough sleep. And that also compromises our immune system. One of the more significant predictors of whether or not you're going to get sick is if you do not get sleep, sufficient sleep.
Yes.
And,
makes sense.
And like you said, Lori, some of the most obvious things that we just choose to say, no, nothing to see here, nothing to see here. Nope, it's not that.
Well, what I do and what I recommend is at the end of the night, read an actual book. You know, those things we used to have a lot of, those books. I always have a good book.
That?
Exactly.
4-letter word. Oh, exactly. How dare you say that?
And, you know, I listen to audiobooks and that type of thing. But at the end of the night, I read an actual book. I turn off all the electronics and I read an actual book. I find that works really well.
That is the best thing to put me to sleep. I'm telling you, Lori.
Exactly.
And I love what you're saying. I love what you're saying because I have been challenging myself to do that also, to turn off this stupid device.
Yep.
Put it like in another room.
Yep.
Right. And actually take out a real live actual book.
Yeah.
Book, you know.
Yeah.
I was wondering, you know, I drove past the library the other day and I said, you know, I wonder how long it'll be from now till they don't exist. How many people actually go to a library? How many people actually read a book? Like I've started driving a bus again, school bus. It kind of keeps me on my toes. And I was just so tickled to see these kids came in this week and they're like, oh, it's the book fair. And one kid, he had a little book and I was like, oh my God. I'm wondering, Go ahead.
My little grandson is 6 and he gets library books. He checks out library books. So it still is alive as a form in our culture. So we just have to keep it going.
Yeah, a lot of
Oh
people
gosh.
get library books online. We have an app for our library here, and you can just check out a digital book. So then you're reading it on your iPad, or it's not good.
But it's
Yeah,
not the same. Plus,
No.
there goes that daggone screen again. Oh my God. Nobody was killed by a piece of paper and some ink, but this stuff is killing us, you
Yeah.
know. So my kids think I'm crazy because I have all these books, and we're creating a headquarters for It Takes a Village ministry that is sponsoring this particular program, where we have like shelves and shelves and shelves and shelves of books. And my kids, they're like, Mom, why do you keep these books? Nobody reads books anymore. You can get everything online. I'm like, no, we need books. We need books. There's just something.
What happens when the electricity is out?
Exactly.
Like
that's when they get depressed. That's when they get depressed and they don't know what to do with themselves. They have no idea of how to create out of nothing, because they're so programmed to need somebody else to provide them with entertainment. You remember when we were growing up, you just gave us some paper, a pen, a little old box, something, and we would entertain ourselves for hours, if not days, right? Now, these kids have everything. And what cracks me up is that they'll still come to you saying, I'm bored. There's nothing to do.
That's right. So give them some pens and markers and paper and they go to town.
And that is what is going to boost their immune system.
Yep.
So not just your vitamin C, your vitamin D, your zinc and whatever, but to give them that sense of joy, that sense of creativity, that sense of building and connection and interpersonal relationships. All of those things are critical to a healthy immune system. All of those things were aspects of real life that were taken away from us, or some would say we abdicated those things, we gave up those things during the COVID era. So now we are in the process of reclaiming that which gives us life and fulfillment, and asserting our desire to be healthy and to stand in contrast to the narrative that says that we are victims and we've got to be afraid, be very, very afraid. It's going to be a dark, horrible winter coming, and you've got to be afraid of the triple-demic that's heading your way.
I don't know how to get, I have somebody that I work with that sent me this NPR article trying to scare you into getting a vaccine because it's going to be a horrible, horrible winter, especially for the immunocompromised. And she is immunocompromised, but she got the vaccine and was like yelling at people for not getting it. How dare you come around me if you're not vaccinated? But then she got vaccine injured. And so she's a little more accepting of us who didn't get it. But she did go ahead and get a booster and a shingle shot. And now sent me this article. And I'm like, I wouldn't worry about that. Like, I would just continue being careful like you are and don't worry about it because stress lowers your immune system. And she wrote me back and said, yeah, I think you're right. Just being careful and probably wearing masks inside. She doesn't live with anybody. I'm like,
She has a cat. The cat has COVID. The cat has COVID, or her dog has COVID.
I don't know what to tell her. I just don't.
Well,
go ahead, Laurie.
One thing I've found is people have a confusion when they hear that COVID or something else is a respiratory illness. They have a weird idea that it can just travel through the air. Like if they walk out on the street or they open their window, they have this idea that these viruses can just fly around. And if you can clear up that erroneous information, because if you look on any of the whatever CDC blah blah blah, and you see, yeah, if you're around someone who's sick and they cough in your face, that could not be a good thing. But that is different than you want some air, you want to walk outside your house, you want to open the window. So people are scared of germs flying through the air, and it's a fictitious situation. So with some people, I try to get clarified for them what is meant by that it is transmitted through contact and air and contact with a person who is infected, but it is not something that just flies through the air of your streets and in your window, if you get what I mean. If you can try to get some sense into it so that it doesn't seem like everything is threatening to them.
Yeah.
And the other part that I emphasize is the reality that viruses are more plentiful than we realize. And they have been here since the beginning of time, and they will be here long after we humans have killed each other and the planet is devoid of us again. So the reality is that there's a distinction between being infected, quote unquote, with a virus versus being sick. You can have, and the reality is that most of us have probably been the host of many coronaviruses in our lives. But the question is, were we susceptible to having that virus trigger an illness cascade?
Mm-hmm.
That is the key. Because any little bug can literally take you out. Any little bug, if your immune system is compromised.
Yeah.
The takeaway message here is we cannot afford to be afraid of all the boogeymen that are out there, or boogie woman to be, PC, that are out there. What we need to think about is, do we have a strong fort?
Good.
Otherwise, you will live the rest of your life in fear, because it'll always be some virus out there that they're going to be able to name and say, this is out there, it's in the air, and you've got to be very, 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 very afraid.
Hear, hear.
So the only antidote to that is, I'm kick-ass. My immune system is kick-ass because I'm doing a whole lot of stuff. So your friend, Karen, you're absolutely correct. There's nothing she can do about the fact that she took the booster at this point in time. There's nothing she can do about the fact that she took all of these different shots. But what she can do, the most important thing that she can do, is how she chooses to perceive her life. Does she see herself as being a healer? Does she acknowledge that God created her to be a healer? Every single moment of your life, you are actually healing some aspect of your physical, mental, emotional, spiritual being. Every single second of your life, you are healing something. The question just becomes, are you destroying faster than you're healing? If you're destroying faster than you're healing, the result is illness. If you're healing faster than you're destroying, then the result is health.
That's great.
Yeah.
So I want us to really move forward as we prepare to move into the new year. Believe it or not, next month it will be our last Doctors Are In for 2022. As we prepare to go into 2023, I would like us to focus on being the beacons of light that shine in the darkness, that are there to guide and to give warmth and hope and vitality to the lost and suffering souls that surround us. We are not in charge of changing their lives. We are, however, I believe, in charge of being lights ourselves, focusing on our own lives so that we create such a brightness, such a warmth, such a sense of courage and resilience that it just emanates from our being, and it envelops those that are around us and gives them the same sense of peace that we have within. That is one of the things that I love about learning about the magnetism of the heart. That whatever you feel on the inside, you can generate that and emanate that to those that are around you. So that even in the chaos, if you walk into that chaos being the spirit of peace and tranquility, that will become the virus that can infect those that are around you. Wouldn't that be awesome?
That's great. I love it.
Yay. Well, everyone, thank you once again for joining us this month for The Doctors Are In. Remember, we will be here again next month, the last month in 2023. I encourage you to invite your families and friends and loved ones and coworkers to send in their questions so that I didn't even get to all these questions that came up. Man, I was so excited about doing the Ayurvedic chart. Well, next month, we are going to talk about the Ayurvedic meridian chart and talk about the different time zones and what organ systems are stimulated, because we had a question about somebody waking up around 3 o'clock in the morning every night, and what could that be all about? But anyway, that's for next month. So remind me next month, you guys, talk about that.
Fantastic.
All righty. So
Thank
we look forward
you.
to seeing you this month, and have a wonderful, blessed Turkey Day. Don't eat too much now. Don't be the gobble gobble on the table. Moderation is